Welcome to The Joyful Exchange, a podcast from Foundation for the Nations, also known as FFTN.
Ever wish there was a philanthropic, Christ-centered giving vehicle where you decide the giving and have fun doing it? Welcome to FFTN.
FFTN aims to draw together Youth for Christ projects from around the world with those who have the capacity to help them. Our motto is wealth into worth for the world, and our desire is to help those who are cash rich but time poor to make good decisions about where to invest their hard-earned money. Our FFTN staff and board have over 200 years' experience in working within the Youth for Christ family. Youth for Christ uniquely reaches young people in ways that are relevant to them in the context of their culture and life circumstances, giving every young person in every nation an opportunity to be a follower of Jesus Christ. For more details, see the links in the podcast bio. The Joyful Exchange podcast therefore exists to encourage and celebrate the generosity of people and the eternal impact that their giving is having amongst the young people of the world served by Youth for Christ. This is The Joyful Exchange, hosted by Simon Marriott. Joining us today on the podcast, we have Marieke YFC's EMENA Area Director. Marieke is married with 2 kids and spends her free time in her studio painting. We join her at the beginning of her leadership journey as an area director for Europe, Middle East and North Africa. We discuss everything from Superwoman to Superman and her dad's prowess with a 3D printer. Let's jump in to this week's Joyful Exchange. Marieke, it's great to have you with us. How are you keeping?
Hi, Simon. It's so good to be here on this podcast. This is my first actual podcast ever, so I am very excited. I have no idea how everything is going to go, but I'm excited to be here.
Well, that's a privilege for us, for this to be your first experience, so hopefully it'll be a positive one. Listen, give us a little update on just you, family life, and the role that you have currently within Youth for Christ.
Yeah, well, good. So you probably know that I'm Dutch. This makes me pretty organized and down to earth usually and direct. I'm married for 16 years to Sander, and I have 2 daughters. One is a teenager and one is a 9-year-old. And I guess I would describe myself as being enthusiastic in general, but also about connecting people and ideas. I'm also fascinated by different cultures and how people think. I'm passionate about helping people find their full God-given potential. So if you combine all of that, leading an international context, that is a very big privilege for me. So that's what I can do in my work all day.
So like you say, that seems to fit really well with being the area director for EMENA, which is a very diverse area if you think about Europe, the Middle East and North Africa. You didn't just wake up one day and say yes to this role. What has been the journey in life so far to get you to where you're currently at in working for Youth for Christ as their EMENA area director?
I love that word, journey. But it's a very difficult question, of course, because someone's journey is always longer and a lot more complicated than I can share in a couple of minutes. And we have 20 minutes. So yeah, let's not take 8 hours to share it. So I'll give it a try. When I was 18 years old, I was a junior leader of the Youth Alpha in my church. And the Youth Alpha had been running for a couple of years. And every year, about 15 young people would show up. We were preparing the first evening of a new course, and we were very excited that this new course was about to start. And when we finished the preparation, we walked to the door to let the teenagers in, and all of a sudden, a crowd of 60 young people came through the door.
Wow.
And most of them were non-Christian.
Hallelujah.
Yes. Well, we panicked, of course, because we were Dutch. And how are we going to feed 60 hungry teenagers when we anticipated 15? We hadn't quite mastered the art of feeding a crowd with 5 loaves and 2 fish. So we were panicking as true Dutch people because we didn't have enough food. So Although that miracle, the food miracle, didn't happen, another miracle did happen. Within 2 nights, all of these teenagers had given their lives to Jesus.
Wow.
And because of that, for me, it really opened my eyes to see what God can do in young people's lives and how the gospel can transform young people. And it was so amazing to be part of that experience. But what I also saw is that the church that I came from, that basically hosted this Alpha course, they weren't ready for this. They had no clue what to do with a group of overexcited, very passionate, teenagers screaming like, I want to be baptized in the river now because it's in the Bible, so let's go.
Yeah, yeah.
And this was a very traditional Dutch Reformed church. So they were
Yeah.
they were looking at us panicking. So they didn't quite know what to do. I noticed that many other churches, because we knocked on several other churches in our area, they all didn't know what to do with a group of teenagers. For me, this was what led me. This was kind of like the beginning to start working for the church. With this huge passion to build bridges between the unchurched and the churched.
Excellent. So then how did you move from that into like this movement today that we call Youth for Christ? What was the step then into that?
Well, after my studies, I did a gap year at Youth for Christ in the Netherlands. So I got to know Youth for Christ, and this was one of the best years of my life because we were all young people and we were living together. We were organizing youth events and we were just having the time of our lives. So that was just 1 year. And after that, I started working for the church. But after a while, I'd been working for the church for about 10 years. And as you know, Simon, I have a lot of energy and I like to go really fast. And at some point, I thought this energy might be suited better in an organization that likes to speed things up as well.
Yes.
And I reminded myself, and I was like, oh, this gap year, Youth for Christ, this is actually that organization that built those bridges between young people
Yes.
and the church. And I thought I'll just give them a call and see if they have any vacancies. Fast forward a couple of weeks later, I started as a leader, one of the leaders in the Netherlands.
Yeah, fantastic. And then from being part of what some people might know as a local chapter or a local center to then developing programs or, more senior leadership, what has that journey looked like?
I always think this is very funny because this is kind of like how Youth for Christ works as well. You sign up for something not knowing what will happen next. So as soon as I started in the Netherlands and they learned that I lived in Scotland, they said, oh, if you speak English, maybe you can do like a training in English for some women who want to start working with Superwoman. And I'd known the program because I'd worked with that for quite a couple of years then because I was working in the church. So I said, of course, I said yes, because I love different cultures and people. So I was like, that's amazing. That is just going to be one-off training. So I can do that volunteering next to my job.
Yeah.
So we had this training. Women from, I think, 7 or 8 different countries came.
Give us like briefly just what is Superwoman if you were to boil it all down?
Yeah, Superwoman, I can describe it big, but if I summarize it, it's basically a resource for women to work with teenage girls. It's a resource that is, I would say, it's mostly about discipleship. So it's mostly how to shape your life in every area. So it has a lot of psychological insight. So it's about one's social life, one's spiritual life, how to live in your network, how to set boundaries, how to deal with your changing body as teenage girls go through. So that's all kind of like incorporated into the Superwoman program.
So you were then at this early stage of your leadership journey, then training other women who would deliver this program to the young women within their context. So yeah, go back to that then. So you were tasked with delivering this training.
Yeah, together with a bunch of other people. But then, as it happens, these other people, they left. And then I was the only one left. So you don't really apply for a job, but the job falls into your lap. And they were like, you're now the Superwoman coordinator. And I said, how did this happen? But of course, I loved it as well because it meant I could work with different cultures. So I said, sure. whatever, never knowing that at some point it would become so big.
Yeah.
So, it just started out with this one training, and I'd been in contact with some of these nations that wanted to start up. And we'll talk about that later, but at some point it exploded and went all over the earth.
Yeah, exciting stuff. I have a similar story myself. It's almost like designated survivor. Um, and then God just does something great through it. So that gets us to the leadership and training aspect. And then take us to today, where you've arrived as the area director for EMENA. So what was the last little step of that journey to get you to where you are today?
Yeah, that is also, I think, a similar story, because at some point I started working as a young leader coordinator.
Mhm.
And I started working with these young leaders all over EMENA. One of the things that I wanted to do was to interview all of the national directors as well, to see what's needed in leadership. I did this research and I spoke to everyone. And in these couple of years of working with the Young Leaders Program and setting up that program in the EMENA area, I got to know all these amazing people, and I was so excited by this. One big reason for me as well was to go into international work is that I knew Edward from my time in the Netherlands, and I just really wanted to work together with him as well. He's a great example as a leader. He's so good at connecting people and being humble and serving like Christ. And I thought, if I can just be somewhere in the same atmosphere, I will learn a lot. So it was a couple of those elements that I really enjoyed my time there. I didn't quite see it coming that at some point I was asked, do you want to consider becoming area director?
Yeah.
Because I thought, why me?
Yeah.
So for me, I was almost laughing, like, are you
Yeah.
kidding? Like,
Yes.
isn't
Yeah.
there like a million other people who are better suited for this role than me?
Yeah.
But I did take it seriously, and I took a whole summer to take time and to pray and to talk to people about it and to try to practically think about it as well, because, it's a lot of travel and I have a family. And I thought about it all, and it really felt like God was saying every door was kind of like opening. And I
Yes.
was like,
Yeah.
but I was terrified at the same time. I do have to be
Yes.
honest. So
Yeah.
I was like, am I really gonna do this? It's a lot of responsibilities. You know how many nations, fall in the EMENA area. Yeah. So eventually I said yes.
And just remind us, how many nations are in the EMENA area?
38.
38. So very diverse, different languages, different cultures, quite a few denominations. If you were to boil it all down, what, as an AD, what are the priorities that you see within the role for the nations?
Well, I think several things. I think a big one is fundraising, because we have all of these nations and there's a huge misconception about Europe being the Netherlands and Germany. It's not all Western Europe. We have the Balkans, we have Central Europe, we have Eastern Europe. Some of those nations don't have a large Christian population in the nation. So for them to try and get funds within their own nations is nearly impossible because of the lack of churches. Like, for example, in Kosovo, they only have a couple of churches. I think it's over 90% of that country is Muslim.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for us to work on that, so to work on the fundraising, I think it's also a huge thing in leading regional directors, the national directors, trying to set out a course on how we can help one another. I'm a very big believer, if we all work together, everything becomes bigger. It's kind of like my hope that we have this network of people, of nations that can bless each other, that they can help each other and also be inspired by one another, because the stuff that's happening is incredible.
What is it like being a young person across the EMENA area?
A lot of young people, they don't have hope. And whether that's to do with the war situation in their country, whether that's to do with economical crisis that quite a lot of our nations are struggling with as well, or whether it's to do with loneliness, what we see, I feel like in Western Europe, where young people are literally being indoors all day, stuck behind their phones.
Yeah.
The biggest need, they are in need of hope.
Mm.
And this is where I see Youth for Christ all across EMENA doing a marvelous job, because this is our core business. We have this message of hope.
Yeah.
We provide these communities, we provide a safe space for them to be and to be loved and to experience something of that.
Oh, so sorry, guys. Just real fast. So I'm sure that our listeners are wondering, if they're not already involved, how can they get involved in giving? Which is an excellent question. Fortunately, there are two ways. So option number one, as an enabling partner, you can actually commit to praying and, if you'd like, contribute monthly to help the foundation keep its wheels on the road. So that could be $5 or $50 a month. The world is your oyster. Or as a project partner, where you can sit around the table at one of our annual gatherings, you get to give your hard-earned cash with confidence to some of these wonderful projects that we've been discussing.
And tell us this then, Foundation for the Nation, thinking about Superwoman, give us a little bit more of what Superwoman is, and then talk to us a little bit about some of those applications that you made so that we get a flavor of how Superwoman has gone from those early days when you were the designated survivor, and now it's grown to, in many ways, a global resource.
So to come back to your first question, to touch a little bit more on what Superwoman is, as I said, this is a resource where we provide basically information or how to do it. It's a whole program for 2 years so that you can do your girls' clubs on a weekly basis to establish relationships with these girls. But it's much more than a resource.
Yeah.
It's becoming more of a movement where women stand up in countries and they say, what happened to me as a teenager, I don't want that to happen to this young girl. And to create this safe space for a girl to develop themselves, and in many nations to talk about taboos, about sexuality, also how to set boundaries. Because we see so many girls struggling with setting boundaries because of a lack of self-worth. And to tell them, it's just those really simple things, but I always feel like there's so much power in simple things. To tell these girls, it's okay to say no. Like if a boy wants to go out with you, or if he wants to touch you and you don't want this, it's okay to say no. And this sounds incredibly easy and simple, but the reality is that almost every woman from every nation I talk to say, this is not easy. For a lot of girls, this is a huge problem. And to be able to touch on those delicate topics and to have these conversations in a safe setting can make a huge difference for the future of a girl. Because imagine a girl going through a lot of horrible situations, it's gonna prevent her from having a stable home. And we feel like this is like Superwoman can basically change generations, because if you have a healthy upbringing, and of course there's always difficult stuff that happen out of our control, but from the stuff that we can influence, if they have a healthy upbringing, they will become, a healthy spouse and a healthy parent, and they will raise their daughters and their sons in a different way, which I feel like will influence the next generation.
So how has it grown from the Netherlands to a sort of global movement, if you want to call it that?
Yeah, so it all started in the Netherlands, and this is quite a while ago. Just to be clear, I did not write the program. This is such a brilliant program. I could not have written that. Like, there were many experts involved. But it was written in the Netherlands for this sole purpose of helping these teenage girls from all different cultural backgrounds in a large city in the Netherlands. And they said, this is a problem. We see these girls struggling, and we need to touch on the basics on how to have a healthy life. Edward, I think, was the person who said we need to translate this because I think this is important. So he's kind of like the Superman in the story because he was the one who's like, this is important. We need to translate this. So I love that. So it was translated, and this is when this first training happened in the Netherlands. Then, of course, we had COVID, a lot of stuff happened, so that was difficult. And then right after COVID, we had a General Assembly in the Netherlands a couple of years ago. They asked me to say something on stage about Superwoman. Now, you have to know about me, I really don't like being on a stage. So I looked at them and I was like, do not put me on a stage in front of 1,000 people to tell a story. Like, there's people who have talents for that. Just ask them. But they were like, yeah, but you're the face, so you have to share something. So I played a trick on them because I asked 5 other women to join me on stage. So I didn't have to be alone. And we were all wearing pink capes and we had a blast. So this was good. We just had this 5-minute talk. And then afterwards, like, in the days that followed, I think I spoke to, I don't know how many women. It felt like hundreds of women that came up to me and they were like, this is amazing. We need this in our country. This is so good. How can I get it? I was a little bit overwhelmed and I was like, this is amazing. So many people want to start and we have the resource and it's available for free. And we always give them the whole package so they can translate themselves. We give them the original documents. But I thought, how are we going to train all of these people? So at some point I was thinking about it and I had this crazy idea of putting in an application to FFTN for a worldwide movement. And I think this is the craziest thing I've ever done because sometimes how things go, people are like, oh, this is amazing. But when it comes to it, it's quite difficult to actually make it happen because I am not present in those countries. So what am I going to do? I need other people who are actually going to lead that into their own nations and areas. So for me, this was pretty scary because, as I said, I am Dutch. So every dollar or every euro that I get, I want to multiply and it needs to be super efficient. And we need to be super honest about where that money goes and how it's spent. And I thought, what if nobody wants it and then we get the money? I think from there, it became a roller coaster because we got the money, obviously. And then I spoke to Nadenia, who is the board chair of YFC, and she was like, okay, we're going to do this in East Africa. She was like, can you come in next month? And I was like, next month? I am Dutch. Panic again. I said yes, because I thought this is amazing. And I was like, how are you going to fix 50 people from 8 different countries in 1 month? I had so much stress about this. I thought, I really hope someone's going to show up, but I decided to let it go and to let God take the reins. So honestly, I did really nothing. I just showed up there and they organized it all with YFC Kenya, these amazing people. I showed up there and here we are, 50 women from 8 different nations. And I was blown away, like, the power African women, it's unbelievable. This was the start of Africa, which, like, at the same time, just before this Africa conference, we had another request from EMENA that we wanted to have another conference. I was in contact with Asia Pacific to do the Superwoman training as part of their Aspire conference. And this all happened at the same time. And I was like, honestly, Simon, I wasn't even trying. It was just, it was happening. I cannot take any credit. This was just God. He was just moving. And I was like, I'll show up. And I have all these wonderful women organizing this in their countries and making sure everyone shows up.
Whenever I remember this application being presented at one of our FFTN gatherings, and all the partners seated around the table, they watched your pitch, the video, we read over the due diligence. I remember people began to get behind this. And then I remember one person specifically who obviously could identify clearly with the stories of these young women and relate to it as being when she was young. And she just wanted to row in on it and take the whole project and say, just give me the whole project. And obviously there was a few others that wanted in on it as well. So like you say, like God is in it from the beginning.
Yeah.
And then he invites other people to get on board with it, which is just something that our FFTN partners absolutely love. They love that invitation to participate in what God is doing and to bless the nation. So even for us to hear how it is multiplied across the globe is just absolutely wonderful. Final reflection then, just as we begin to move towards closing out the podcast, is there anything just that's on your heart that you would like to share?
I feel like I've already said way more than I normally do. So good question asking, Simon. You're making me talk, which is something for a Dutch person. I'm going to say it again, is that if you have time, please pray and encourage our youth workers, because we often think of the organization and the leaders, but honestly, they're doing the real work.
Yeah.
Some of them struggle to even make ends meet financially, but they're still choosing to live this life of service to others.
Wonderful. I just want to say a huge thanks for being part of this. I know this is your first podcast, and it's good to hear that you've actually shared more than what you were planning to share. So that's great. And listen, we just want to encourage you. You're doing a great job. And we love to see projects coming in from the EMENA area, and especially Superwoman as well. So thank you so much for that, Marieke. We're just going to segue to a little segment that we have called the Joyful Six. I'm going to throw 6 questions at you and just hear your thoughts on that. So here we go. The first one is, if your friends were to sum you up or describe you in one word, what would that be?
They would describe me as enthusiastic.
Okay, coffee or tea?
Both.
Oh, that's like me. A bit of fruit tea as well. A scripture quote that's inspiring you right now, or another quote?
I really love Psalm 84. And I've been recently diving into that a lot, because I was creating a painting. I love to paint and make art, and I was trying to visualize Psalm 84. I love the Psalms because they're so honest about life's difficulties.
What's your favorite place in your country that you think everyone should either go or experience?
There's many cool places in the Netherlands, obviously. I think Utrecht as a city is really, really nice. It's got the canals and all these old buildings and churches, and that's as Dutch as you can get, pretty much, yeah.
If you weren't in ministry, what's another role that you could have seen yourself doing?
Do you have an hour? I have so many ideas. I think I would pretty much love every job. Definitely something with young people is that I would always love, but something with art, that is something I would love as well. So something in the creative range as well.
What's bringing you joy today?
Well, this conversation is bringing me joy, Simon. So thank you for this. And there's a lot of things that bring me joy. So I think that's one of the plus sides of my personality. Yeah, I'm kind of like an optimistic, sometimes too optimistic person. But yeah, I looked forward to this, and it's always good to talk to you. So today, this is bringing me joy.
And here, I just thought we should mention that you're wearing great earrings. So what's the story behind those? Because I think that's a very joyful moment as well.
Yeah, so for the listeners, I'm wearing huge earrings that are an abstract flower. It was my birthday last week, and my dad asked me, what do you want to have for your birthday? And I am blessed, so I have many things, so I don't need much. But what I love is handmade, personal stuff. So I said to my dad, look, if you can create an earring, because I know he's got a 3D printer. So I said, if you can create a couple of giant earrings, that would be amazing. He went out of his way and he got me this tiny box, this 3D printed box with all kinds of earrings. And he said, here you are, my dear. Here's some colorful big earrings that I printed on my 3D printer. So I'm super excited because I'm bringing my dad and his love into the conversation as well by wearing them.
Yeah, maybe as a website or something, we can throw the domain name in the bio there. Marieke, thanks so much for your time. I hope you like a warm beverage, because for all those that feature on the podcast, we have a little thank you. Our No Mug mug, inspired by the words of Jim Elliot, the famous American missionary. He is no mug, that is, he is no fool, who gives up what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. One of those is on its way to you. And to our listeners, we hope you'll join us for another joyful exchange, when we'll be featuring inspiring conversations with visionary partners, ministry leaders, and change agents who are transforming wealth into worth for the world.
Foundation for the Nations is a Christ-centered giving vehicle facilitating Christian philanthropy and kingdom-minded investment, creating opportunities to make an eternal difference in the lives of young people around the globe served by Youth for Christ. You've been listening to the Joyful Exchange podcast. For more details, see www.fftn.org/joyfulexchange.